Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. Today we're discussing the Oris Aquis 2015 limited edition of 2,000 pieces, the Coste limited edition 4. You can see this, the fourth in the Coste free dive tribute series, and purchase it on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during these videos to see our full sales listing for this watch with additional accessories included in the sale, high resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this limited edition titanium diver. Now, the Coste series for Oris started in 2006, and as the record-setting Venezuelan freediver has continued to set new marks, and often done so with an Oris on his wrist, the love affair has continued. The watch you see on my wrist is an interesting combination of some of the traditional Coste series features with the beautiful coral coloration that you may associate with the Staghorn Restoration Edition. It's warm, it's handsome, it's cheerful, and it fits the persona of the watch well. The watch also fits my wrist well, and that's downright shocking considering we are talking about a watch that's 46 millimeters in diameter on a 16 centimeter circumference wrist. It comes down to the lightness of titanium and the profile of the lugs themselves. So 46 is the measurement across the round of the case, not including the crown, crown guard, or helium escape valve. The watch is thick, at 16.2 millimeters thick, but it will clear the sleeve of a sport jacket because of the rounded lip of the knurled bezel, just not the dress sleeve beneath. Now, from lug to lug, it's a reasonable for a 46 millimeter, 54.2 millimeters, and that is a true measurement. As the bracelet pivots straight down, you can pull it straight down. There's no solid end link flare to extend the watch horizontally across the wrist. Now, I need to talk about the shape of the lugs and the flexibility of the bracelet. The bracelet pulls straight down. You can even pull it inboard, so this is why it's a perfect match for a small wrist. There's no solid end link flare to extend it. Moreover, you'll note how the lugs are remarkably short and tightly downturned. I have rarely seen lugs this short. The watch is almost a cushion case, and because they are so short and they jut straight down, they don't flare out at the sides of the wrist, so they look more at home. They look more aesthetically correct and natural on a small wrist than a watch that has a stronger lug profile, something for instance like a 46 millimeter IWC Big Pilot. This watch is nothing like that. I would say if you can wear a traditional 42 millimeter Royal Oak offshore or a Betterini case Panerai Luminor, you can wear this. Now, the watch is very light, all in titanium. You'll also notice that the individual links of the bracelet are relatively narrow, so that is, longitudinally they're relatively narrow, even though they're relatively robust horizontally. So it has a silky feel of almost a dress bracelet on the wrist when you combine the small links with the titanium structure. Light and comfortable. Look at it from the bottom and you can see just how generously it vents the wrist. Plenty of aeration opportunities to avoid the trapping of heat, sweat, moisture, and grit. You'll also note that the channels are nicely rounded between the links to avoid pinching skin and pulling hair. I truly appreciate that Oris fixes its straps and its bracelets to these Aquis models using screws. This is how it should be on every expensive watch. Any watch that costs over $1,000 should not use spring bars. Oris is setting the pace, and at a very attractive price point. You'll also note that the bracelet is sized entirely with screws, no pin sleeves or spring bars here. Deluxe features continue in the clasp, which features both twin trigger release, no friction fit, no clamshell, but twin trigger release, and a generous dive extension with a few micrometric adjustment points that you can choose independently of the flip out. The flip out is very solid, feels milled from a billet, and it can be used for extending the watch over a wetsuit or dry suit. I happen to feel that you're more likely to use it over a thick winter sweater or coat, but then again, I hate to swim. The watch, however, loves aquatic activity, and it has a robust 500 meter water resistance with a curious placement of its helium escape valve. Yes, it has one, but it's where you would conventionally find the winding and setting crown. Instead, the winding and setting crown is positioned and well sheltered between lug and guard at 2 o'clock. So you have the standard functions of the Sellita base caliber. This one's actually doing business as the Oris caliber 743. Oris does make a modification to take the center second SW220, which is essentially a Sellita 2824 caliber, and they create a small second off-center complication for a more discrete reading of the seconds. You also note that there's a bidirectional pointer. Now the crown is out completely. It does feature hacking seconds. Push the crown back in, And you'll note the watch also features a quick set date at 3 o'clock for rapidly cycling the date should the watch run down or encounter an irregular length month. The timepiece does have a 38-hour automatic winding power reserve, and the winding system in the SW220, like the 2824, is bidirectional, so it's smooth and relatively quiet. It's a 28,800 vibration per hour beat rate, but this watch is more about the case, the profile, and the ergonomics. The case is simple. There are a few polished highlights, as you can see on the hoods of the lugs, as well as the knurling of the bezel. The sides of the watch are nicely satin finished, and you'll note that there is a horizontal satin finish on the flanks and a vertical satin finish between the lugs, so attention to detail being paid on this timepiece. The bezel has a detent that I would describe as somewhat creamier than, for instance, an Omega Seamaster 300 meter or a Rolex Submariner. It's more akin to what you'll find on a Grand Seiko or a Blancpain 50 Fathoms, but you can hear it, you can feel it, and I'll say that the knurling is world-class because it's deep and it's relatively sharp cut, which is what you want when you have to manipulate a bezel with wet, sweaty, or gloved hands. Now, it is a ceramic bezel insert, so Oris sweating the details in design, also providing a higher level of material specification. The ceramic effectively is scratch-resistant as Sapphire for practical purposes. You can line up the bead with the minutes hand, and now you've got an impromptu 0 to 60-minute timekeeper. This is preferable, in my opinion, to most chronographs because 99% of the time, if I'm timing something with a chronograph, it's going to be less than an hour, and it's simply easier to read a big hand following a radial scale than it is to read sub-minutes, that is sub-minutes on a sub-dial on a chronograph. Plus, you don't have the larger downstream maintenance costs to deal with. The dial itself is a matte black, so absolutely anti-reflective. It does have a slight hollow for the sub-seconds. You can see there is an impression upon the dial to add another focal plane. And the date disc is made in a monotone fashion with high contrast white on black printing. The fact that it is a very small date disc with a monotone disc and even a stepped aperture to smooth the transition from the dial plane means that the date really kind of disappears when you're not looking for it, so it doesn't break up the aesthetic of the dial. Now, all the indices in impressive fashion are applied rather than printed. Again, Oris punching way above its weight with this watch, delivering a lot of material quality and a feature-rich product. So whether you're a free diver or simply a desk diver, this Oris Aquis Coste Limited Edition 4 may just be the watch with which you take the plunge. See it on our website and decide for yourself. And we're back for last licks because I realized I did not show you the case back. And now you've seen it. And I'm back with the Oris Aquis Coste Limited Edition 4. You can see that the watch features abundant luminova and that there's even a distinction between the indices, the hands, and the luminescent bead of the bezel, so you can quickly read the watch at an intuitive glance. This is the Oris Aquis Coste 4 Limited Edition.